Ailith, wife of Goldwyn the armourer, swept her gaze around her long hall, inhaled deeply of the rich forest scent, and sighed out with pleasure. Great swags of Yuletide evergreen garlanded the roof beams and the timbered walls. At spontaneous intervals she had hung kissing bunches of the sacred white mistletoe and blood-buried holly. Above the place of honour near the hearth, a magnificent pair of stag's antlers had been nailed, and the reflected firelight stained the broad edges and polished tips of horn a glossy crimson. Tomorrow night her brothers had promised to find time from their duties as bodyguards of the great Harold Godwinson, Earl of Wessex, to bring her the traditional Yule log and stay to dine. She was greatly looking forward to the meal, for apart from Goldwyn, Aldred and Lyelf were the only family she possessed, and their visits were precious. A sudden commotion at the door heralded the return of her two serving women from the markets in the heart of the city. Braying in protest at the weight in his laden panniers, the pack-ass was led round the side of the house by the younger maid, Sigrid. Wulfhild, puffing and plump, staggered into the long hall, her arms weighted down by 2 net bags of provisions. "God save us, Mistress Ailith, I've never seen such crowds." She dumped the bags on the new, thick floor rushes and pressed her hands into the small of her back. "And all the stallholders charging what they like. We got the best bargains we could, but if it weren't Yuletide, you'd say the prices were shameless robbery." Ailith's generous lips twitched at her maid's indignation. "I'm sure I would," she commiserated gravely as Wulfhild handed her a small drawstring pouch. It was considerably lighter than it had been at the outset of the excursion. "There would be less in it still if Bran, the fishmonger, hadn't got a soft spot for Sigrid." Wulfhild continued to grumble. "He let us have the pike and salmon you asked for, at only half the price it was charging everyone else. And when we got to the onions, you'd have thought they was made out of gold the way—" "Wulfhild, I believe you," Ailith said, a trifle impatiently. Over the maid's shoulder she saw Goldwyn enter the hall. Even in the raw December cold, his sleeves were pushed up to his elbows, exposing his brawny forearms. He was wearing a stained leather apron over his old tunic, and his face was smutty from the forge. His right fist was closed around the nasal bar of an iron helmet. "Take those bags to the store and unpack them," Ailith commanded. "I'll inspect everything later, and before you do that, bring out some bread and ale for Master Goldwyn."